Hey everyone. So if you're a regular subscriber to this channel, then you know that about 6 months ago, I bought a car through Carvana. And I've been meaning to make this video. I made it once and I forgot to put some stuff in it, so I'm refilming it and getting it up hopefully today. Now, I want to tell you about my experience using Carvana because when I was researching it, I couldn't find hardly any videos. And really, even all the reviews I found, they were all positive. And that seems so weird. How does a company only have positive reviews? And that made me suspicious. Now, in the 6 months or so since that happened, I've seen a couple of reviews pop up that aren't terrible, but are not great. And that's kind of the way that this one works too. But I just want to give you guys my story about what happened and how the car has worked out for me. So in September of 2017, my car blew up. And I was pretty much stranded, and I really didn't have very much cash at all in order to get a new car. I rode the bus for a month, but that added 4 hours plus to my daily commute and really cut into my productivity. So when I started my new job in late November of 2017, sometimes I would get a ride home from one of the office workers. She just happened to live in the same area as me, and as we were driving, we were talking, and she told me about how she had bought her car. And it had been a couple years prior, but she had bought it through Carvana. And she told me how great the experience was, that she had bought the car, had no problems with it, and that when they brought it to her, they had this big party and they brought her a cake, and it was this huge to-do. And when she went to get gas for the first time, she saw that there was like a gas gift card taped inside the gas door. So there's all these little like bonuses like that. And everybody that I've heard of, every review, they all back that up. You know, some people get t-shirts, sometimes they do photo shoots, sometimes they have like a camera crew come in, like a video camera crew. They always make a huge to-do about you getting the car. Now, another one of our office workers had actually bumped into the woman who drops off the cars in Columbus at a bar, and she confirmed, she's like, hey, this girl's cool as hell. We talked about how, coworker number one got her car, and just everything I heard was just raving about this company. Now, the reason that I really looked into Carvana was not just because a coworker had bought from them, but because I had very little cash to buy a car. I had about $750 in cash, and I probably could have got a few hundred more from somewhere else, but very little to get anything. I've always paid just cash for vehicles, but the ones that I was finding barely ran, and I knew something would happen soon and I wouldn't be able to repair it. I didn't want to get myself in that mess. So my justification for getting the car was that, well, I am working full-time now. I can use my proof of income to get financed for the car, and I would only add this debt because I am going to work in addition to my full-time hours, and what I make off doing rideshare with the new car I buy, that's going to pay the car payment. So that was the deal. I was not only going to pay my car payment with the money that I made off driving the new car for Uber and Lyft, but I was going to make a little money on top of that. So instead of it being an asset, instead of it being a liability, it becomes an asset. That's what I'm trying to say. So I ended up having to put $800 down for the car, which was great because I had $750 in cash that I'd already taken out for the car. I was really surprised that I was approved on my credit. Of course, I've never tried to finance anything in my life, but I really didn't think that I would be approved, and I was. So that was great. I did have a fairly high interest rate. It was around 15%, just a little bit lower than that, I think. And my total car payment came to $279 a month, and then I got an $11 per month gap coverage because I know my luck, and I know if I total this car, I don't want to have to continue paying on a car that I don't have and can't drive. So, with that being the case, uh, when you actually look at Carvana's website, there are a few things that you need to look out for. And I'll probably address this a little later too, but when you look at the interior view of the car and the exterior view, they put these little uh, indicators on there that you can click on, and it tells you that in those areas there's a little damage. So, the one thing I do want to mention before I forget is, especially with the interior of the car, there's going to be more than what they indicate. It's nothing that's kind of breaking the deal or anything, but just realize only probably about half of the cosmetic issues the car has do they actually mark on there. Now, I was using the car for Uber and Lyft, and I knew it was going to get beat up anyway, so it wasn't a huge deal to me, but it's a little misleading. So, now, the actual delivery of the car was kind of where things started to go a little off track with this. They say that you can pick any time you want for the car to be dropped off to you. But in my case, it just gave me the following week to choose from. And there was only one slot of an hour that I could do it. So I didn't really have much of a choice. It's like, well, it has to be right then. And it was after dark, which made, kind of inspecting the vehicle visually, made that difficult. And it was also late December, so it was freezing. So I was not really going to get out and, look at it in any mechanical sense. But I did that. Now, they did give me the option that they would pay or reimburse up to $200 of a plane ticket for me to fly to Nashville and use their car vending machine in order to get it. Later on, I found out the car was not even in Nashville, and it was in Washington, PA. So I don't know why I would be flying to Nashville to get it, and I'm glad I didn't now, since it wasn't there, and that would be a whole nother issue. And the other concern that I had about going down there is that you have a 400-mile limit from the time you get it to the time you can return it, because you have a 7-day, no questions asked return policy. So maybe, I didn't ask because I wasn't going to do it, maybe they add additional miles onto that, but I thought, I'm going to use all my 400 miles driving back home. There are really two things that this company really pushes in order to make you feel secure. Because you're buying something sight unseen online, and most people aren't used to that. It's a new format for doing it, and they know that. So the two things that they really push is that you're going to have this 7-day return policy, that you can drive the car up to 400 miles in 7 days, and if you don't like it, you can return it and switch it out for another car, or you can just return it altogether. I think there might be a restocking fee, but you do get most of your money back. And that comes into play. You'll see. The other thing is, though, is their inspection. They really tout their multi-point inspection. And this is actually one of the points where I had quite a lot of problems with them. So the first thing would just be the cleanliness. Now, my car I had before this was a certified pre-owned from Subaru, and I know that it was immaculately detailed when I got it. And I like to have a clean car, and especially because I was going to use this car as a rideshare vehicle, that is part of my job, is to have a very clean car. When I got the car, you could tell that it had been detailed, but it just wasn't done very well. I mean, you could see streak marks on the glass and over the speedometer and stuff. You could tell they wiped it down, but it just wasn't really very well done. It was just a quick once over and not really much more. So I was going to either have to do it myself or I was going to have to pay somebody to do it before I could start using it as a ride share vehicle rather than doing it right away as I'd planned. The cleanliness is the first thing. The second thing, though, is really some of the issues with the inspection. They have this, I don't know if it's a 50 or 100 point inspection, something like that, and they say that they check all these things and that all these things are perfect. Well, again, it was the middle of winter. There was snow on the ground. I couldn't exactly crawl under the car to check things. There was one major thing that I noticed as soon as the car got there. When the woman who brought it to me on the tow truck, when she started it, it sounded like it was having difficulty turning over. That day, it was pretty cold, and I'm like, well, it's cold, and maybe it's been sitting on the lot for a while, and they obviously didn't drive it here. It's on a flatbed, so yeah, maybe the battery's just been sitting for a while, and once I drive it, it'll need to charge. I didn't think too much about it. It bothered me that it sounded loud when it first started up and when it was cranking over. But it's a PZEV, which is a partial zero emissions vehicle. It's the first one I've ever had, and I thought, well, maybe it's something to do with that. And I Googled it, and sure enough, I found a lot of articles saying how they run a little rougher when you first start them up and how they turn over a little louder. So I was like, okay, that must be what it is. But on the 7th day of my 7-day trial, the battery died. And it didn't die completely. All the stuff inside still worked. It was just, it just wouldn't turn over. And anyway, I ended up having to get AAA to come out to the middle of nowhere, and it was Christmas Day, so they couldn't sell me a battery. They got it jump started, and they're like, just don't turn it off. Just, if you need to stop somewhere, just leave it running. And it got me back to Columbus. So I was not happy, though. I just spent the most money I'd ever spent in my life on purchasing something. And I'd not even had it for a week yet, and it already left me stranded. So it kind of, I guess, just worried me, but it took away that confidence that I had in buying a new car. I mean, I had been looking for a car in like the $1,000 range, and I ended up getting a $13,000 car because it was financed. And I knew I was spending a ton of money. I at least wanted it to be reliable, and this was making me think already that it wasn't. So I definitely was disappointed by that. But that didn't end up being the only thing. Now, as far as the battery, I did contact Carvana, and I said, hey, I had AAA look at it. It left me sitting on Christmas Day. And they're like, yeah, that shouldn't have happened. Go ahead and get the battery replaced, and we'll reimburse you for it. And I was like, hey, and by the way, both of the license plate bulbs, like up above the license plate, both of them are out. So here we've got three things. We've got two bulbs that are out, and a battery that was basically dead that somehow got past their huge inspection that they do. And they're like, yeah, get those fixed too. So I did. I took it to Subaru. I had them install a new battery. I had them fix the lights. Sent Carvana the receipts for it. And to their credit, they did overnight me a check to reimburse me for that. Later on, though, I started to find a few other issues. And one was when I took it into Subaru. They did, I think it was when I got my first oil change. They did an inspection, and they told me that there's a lot of wear on the brakes, but that the brake pads were brand new. So apparently what Carvana did is during their inspection, they saw that the brakes were very worn, but just replaced the brake pads and nothing else. And that, I don't know, it just seems a little sketchy, to me to send it out that way with the claim that it's good to go. And on top of that, in January, I hit a curb. I slid on ice, hit a curb, thought I messed up the wheel bearing. took it to Subaru because after a few days or a week or so, I started hearing a noise, and it was a very slight grinding noise, and I'm like, I'm sure it's a wheel bearing. Well, I took it to Subaru, and they're like, actually, no, you just kind of bent the wheel a little bit. It's not that big of a concern. On that, he's like, but you do have a wheel bearing going out on the back. And at this point, I'd put a couple thousand miles on the car, so I didn't contact Carvana to get them to replace this, even though it cost me $500 to get fixed. And Subaru assured me that this has been going on like this for quite a while, and it just now started to make noise. He's like, you hitting that curb on the opposite side of the car is not what caused this. This is this is an existing issue. I couldn't prove it to Carvana. I didn't ask him about it. What I can say is when I reached out to Carvana again, after I had taken it to Subaru and gotten the battery replaced, and they replaced the bulbs. Fortunately, it was just a bulb, not an electrical issue, on the back for the license plate lights. I saw later only one of them worked. And I contacted Carvana, and I was like, hey, they replaced the bulbs, only one works, and I think it's an electrical issue. And they got kind of feisty with me on Twitter, and I felt like they thought I was trying to just like get money out of them for a bunch of stuff. So just keep in mind that even if it is a legitimate issue, you might not get them to make it right with you. So anyway, it turns out, according to Subaru, it was their fault. I don't know exactly what the deal is, but they brought it back in and did it for free and got it working. That's the end of the actual cleanliness and maintenance issues that I had with the car. But I do want to discuss one other thing. Whenever you see a Carvana commercial, or when you talk to somebody who has bought a car through Carvana, or even when you read their reviews, read all the things about people getting t-shirts and gift cards and food and all these things given to them, and this big to-do made about them getting their car. I was just happy to have a car. I was walking before that, and it was the middle of winter. I was happy to have a car. So I would not have been disappointed in my car buying experience, except that they hyped that up so much, the experience of getting it. And there was nothing done for me. No food, no gift cards, literally nothing. So that made it disappointing. That it looks like, oh, everyone else got this big party, and I got nothing. And so I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't expecting anything, but then you hyped it up, and now I didn't get anything. And I mean, you guys are all about the car buying experience, so that kind of puts a damper on it too. But I mean, in the end, I was just glad to have the car, basically. There's another thing too. When you meet with your person to pick up your car, they have you sign some paperwork. I mean, pretty standard. You've signed most of it ahead of time online. I really think they should give you access to those documents beforehand. Send those out to you so that if you need to have someone review them, you can. One of the things that I was very leery of is that you have to sign a power of attorney to Carvana. It's a limited power of attorney, but I believe it's to do some stuff at the DMV, but it really doesn't specify very clearly what it's for. And I've never signed a power of attorney for anything. I was not comfortable signing it without having somebody review it first, but I wasn't given that opportunity. It wasn't with the paperwork that was done online. It was brought by the person who brought the car, and it was either, well, you sign this now or you don't get your car. Another thing that kind of was not the greatest is communication and the license plate issue. It came with temporary tags on it, and I don't know how any of this works because I've only bought vehicles used from individuals. So I don't know. I really don't know how this is supposed to work, and I think part of this is just my ignorance in this. But it came with a temporary tag, and there were no instructions on what to do as far as getting the plates. I don't have the title for the car because it's financed, so I can't actually go to the BMV and get the plate for it. There was no instruction other than when I ordered it, and then on the phone, and then with the person in person who dropped it off, I said, I have another set of plates that I want to use. Well, there was no follow up until about 2 or 3 days before the temporary plates expired. And then I got plates in the mail from Carvana. Now, this was annoying because they charged me for these. I, I, I think they took them out of my down payment or something. I don't know exactly how it worked, but they charged me for the plates that I told them 3 times that I didn't want. Now, I ended up using those plates because it's a issue with my apartment complex and the other car, and so yeah, but I wouldn't have, and I didn't want to pay for the extra plates, and I was basically forced to. And there was no communication about it at all, and there was no instructions. So it wasn't like, oh, here's the process. You're going to get your plates in a few days, and then here's what you need to do. There was nothing like that. So I think that that's something that they could do to make the process a lot better, is just, well, communication, but also give you some kind of guidance as to what happens from here on. So other than that, one thing that you should be concerned with is the company that they use to finance these vehicles. I didn't know that anyone would approve me, so I didn't look into any other company. If you have good credit, you do have the opportunity that you can use your local bank or credit union and you can enter the information on the website. But if you choose to finance it through Carvana, they use Go Financial, which I think is the same thing as Bridge Crest, I think it's called. I don't know, mine started as Go and then went to Bridge Crest. The issue with this, and I didn't find this out till later, is that it's a subprime lender. Now, in my case, I probably wouldn't qualify for any prime lending service, but for many people they would. But Carvana, no matter what your credit is, will finance you through a subprime lender. So you're going to have higher fees and higher interest than you would with any other company, just for the fact that this is the company they use. So definitely, if you're going to do this, look into your own financing. Unfortunately, I have found some videos that say that if you are financed through these companies, that it actually looks bad on your credit report, even if you're paid as agreed and everything, or even if it's paid off, that it looks bad that you used a subprime lender. I don't know how much truth is in that. I don't know enough about that, but just keep that in mind. But other than the issues with Carvana's cleanliness and with the inspection and communication and customer service, ultimately, I am pretty happy with the car. I mean, it's a car, and I make the payments, and they report it to the credit agency. They're actually flexible with the payments. You have a 15-day grace period after your actual due date of payment before they even charge you a late fee or show it as late in your credit report. So I think that's pretty cool. I would say that while my experience was not good, it wasn't bad. I had quite a few problems, but I think in the end, they've pretty much worked out. I mean, the car's been decent. I can't complain too much. Eventually, I'll catch up with the maintenance that they should have caught that I'm going to have to do now. So it did cost me a little more, well, several $100s more in the end. I would say that if you are in a situation like mine, where you don't have a car to travel around to different dealerships, that this is probably perfect for you. You're not going to get ripped off. Just keep in mind that it's not going to look as great as it does on the website. And probably as much as they insist on it, don't really rely on their inspection. I would say if I were to do this over again, I would probably take it to Subaru, have them do an inspection, send back to Carvana all the stuff that needs fixed on it, saying, hey, you said this was covered in your inspection. You didn't do any of this. Make them fix it, or if they don't fix it, send it back to them. But I wasn't in the best negotiating spot to do that. So I wouldn't say I wouldn't buy from them again. I think I would, more than likely, my next car, I will probably actually physically go to the dealership. But if you're having transportation issues getting to look around at cars like I was, this is probably a fairly good option for you. Now, I had hoped that I could offer you guys the promo code. They have a $500 off promo code. Unfortunately, that code is not valid in Ohio, and since I bought my car in Ohio, I can't give it to you. But if you go on Facebook and you look at their advertisements, or if you Google it, I'm sure you'll be able to find people who are offering their code. I wish I would have known about this when I bought it. $500 off that's a big chunk. $13,000 car. I mean, that's a 26th of the purchase price. So definitely look for that if you're going to buy through Carvana. Definitely try to find that code, because although I can't personally give it to you, it's going to hook you up. And if at any time I ever move out of Ohio, I might try to get that code, so just check it in the description. It might be down there. But anyway, guys, I hope I'm not forgetting anything, but that is my experience with Carvana. Honestly, their slogan is hashtag that didn't suck. It's more like hashtag that kinda sucked, but it was okay. It was hashtag okay. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I've been meaning to get this up forever. And I hope for people out there, even if you're not familiar with my channel, that this is more of an honest review than the ones that all seem fake that I found when I was looking for it. And I also have seen another couple of reviews that are not horrible, but not great. And I think that that's more indicative of the actual experience that you're going to have. So if you are thinking about getting something from Carvana, definitely watch this video first so you know what you're getting yourself into. Go find that $500 code, get yourself the discount, and other than that, you'll be fine. You're not going to get ripped off. Buying a car from the internet, it's just the new way of doing it, and it's honestly not anything too bad. Thank you guys for watching, and I will have a new video up for you next week.